In my previous video, I showed you how to get your photo reference like you see on the left side. And now I'm going to show you how to get your painting that you see on the right. So let's take a look at our next steps. Now we will talk about all of the ways that you can get your picture onto your canvas. So number one is print out the photo so that you have this paper quality. If you don't have access to a printer and you're working digitally, you can take your line drawing or the picture with the sections and use an app called Lightbox Trace. This app allows you to pull up a picture and lock the screen of your iPad so that you can trace the image. So the idea is you would trace the image onto a piece of paper and use that piece of paper in how I show you how to do it right here, which is transferring it to the canvas. Now I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do this. Number one, there's something called graphite paper, and that is a paper that has graphite all over one section and the other side does not. So this section has all the graphite, which is what's inside of a pencil, and I could put that down onto my canvas. And then I put this down and I trace over the top. I'll show you how that works in just a minute. If you don't have something like graphite paper, what you can do is use a pencil or something like a pastel or a charcoal, and you would rub that all around the back of your picture. Or you can take a pencil and do the same thing. I'm going to get the big dusty stuff off. And then what happens, and I'll just give you a little preview. I'm not going to do this for my whole piece, but I just want you to see what it looks like. Is you could take a pencil or a pen. I like to work with pen. It has a harder tip to it. And then when I go over my sections, that line will transfer there. All right, I'm just going to kind of erase that out. I'm going to end up drawing over that anyways. So I'm going to get set up to use my graphite paper, so I have the graphite side down. They also sell white graphite paper. If you have a dark canvas, like let's say you're painting on a black canvas, you will use a white graphite paper in order to see the lines. But I'm going to use black because I'm using blue, and I'm going to tape this right onto here, and then I'm going to go over my lines. When you're going over your lines, you want to have some detail to the line, but you don't have to get every tiny little dip and curve here. It's really, each of these little curves they're very important around the nose and the eyes and the mouth. You want to have more detail in those sections. But some sections like here with the hairline, you don't have to get like every little curve up here. By the eyes and the nose and the mouth, those sections are going to be really important because that's where we're actually going to really be able to tell who this person is. So you want to trace those. So something I like to do is I like to tape it to the top so it's not going to move, but I don't tape the bottom because what I want to do before I completely remove this is to check to make sure that everything is drawn. So this keeps it in the same place. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start tracing my sections. Okay, so now that I've got my outline here, I want to talk to you about some of the choices that I made when I transferred this design. Number one is to look at the eyes and the details here. I don't leave the little glimmers of light out. I create a little section here for where the interior part of the eye is. You want to really include the whites of the eyes and where those things are. I also drew a line here to show where the edge of the eye is and the eyelids are, okay? Those are all going to be something that we want to include in our painting, especially when I also get to the nose. The nose gets a little bit complicated in this particular image too. there's a slight bit of a shadow above this nostril. I include that because that's going to help me create the shape of the nose. There's a shadow underneath this nose that helps me get the tip of the nose figured out. And also there's a darker crease here and here that I create more of a shape for. It might look like a line in your image, but create a whole shape. Just like this looks kind of like a line over here for the eyelid, but I'm going to make that into a shape, something that I can paint to show that definition. When I come over here to the lips, I see lots of these little lines and highlights here. I chunk them up as shapes so that I can paint them. So a lot of the time when you're doing something like this, we've edited this picture so that it chunks out the values into shapes, but you still as an artist need to go in and start to make your own choices in order to think about, okay, I'm actually gonna paint this picture now. What am I going to keep in? What am I going to leave out? So that's where things like, okay, I'm going to, maybe I might even do a couple of other like little shadows in this mouth, or I look at how those shadows are sectioned out. You want to make choices now so when we get into the painting process, we can move through it pretty quickly. Another thing I'll remind you of is to bring the shoulders in, because the shoulder, without the shoulders, it's going to just be a floating head here. So I like to have my portraits be pretty grounded in that way. All right, so now I've got my canvas set up. I'm not going to get rid of this picture because I'm going to look at it throughout the process and decide, is this my light section, my middle section, or my dark section? And you'll be doing that throughout. We'll be doing lots of layers, and I'll just be adding so much to this canvas to build it up and create a nice pop portrait.